Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pokemon Classics, where the past is our present. Today we're going to be looking at some oddities, some error cards, some pre-release cards, some promotional things that don't get a lot of coverage in the Pokemon world. So I want to start out with this really cool Haunter error card that I found. In my fossil set video, I talked about the Cigar error that's commonly found on Hitmonlee. Well, it's the one that people refer to as the Cigar error, and really what it is this line streak that's left on the card. Often you'll find these on Hitmonlee in the fossil set, but every once in a while you can come across a Haunter card that has that same streak, and this one is really pronounced. This is one of the most obvious versions of this error card that I've encountered. Now this Haunter is originally supposed to look like this without those two yellow lines, and that's what makes it an error directly from the factory. I'm not sure why that is. There's probably some sort of roller or paint or I don't know, printing that got smeared across it as it dried, because that's on the card. Now this particular Haunter with this error is in really great condition. If I can get that to focus. There's occasional dots of whitening, but overall, it's pretty good. This card I would expect a PSA 8 on. If it was lucky, maybe a PSA 9, but there are a few white dots in the corner. You can kind of see them at the top. And so I never take a mint grade for granted. This would be near mint to mint in my eyes. But definitely really cool card. This is one that does not surface very often, and it's really unique. It's a very interesting error card for sure. The next card isn't really an error, but if we think about vintage Pokemon, how could we not think of E3 Pikachu? Now there's two variations of E3 Pikachu, and if you guys are familiar with the base set, you know there's a shadowless version of the base set that doesn't have the shadow over on the side of the box, and then there's the unlimited version that does have the shadow. With Pikachu in particular, there's another distinguishment, and that's the color of the cheeks. In the unlimited version, Pikachu has yellow cheeks. In the shadowless and first edition forms, Pikachu has red cheeks. Now, prior to the release of the English Pokemon trading card game, E3 provided Pikachus to any attenders that were actually attending the conference, and the Pikachus that came sealed were the shadowless red cheek variety, making them significantly more rare today. The other ones were provided as a promo card and mailed out, I think through Nintendo Power. I could be wrong about that. But these ones are far more common than the red cheeks variety. In this day and age, this card in mint condition can sell for quite a bit of money, maybe $300-400. And if you have it still sealed in the original package, it's worth even more. This one is in beautiful condition. As you can see, I have it sleeved and ready for grading. But in addition to that, in my background here, I actually have 3 of these that I picked up off of a seller, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, that are all still in the original packaging that they were given out in back at the E3 convention. And I believe this convention was originally in 1998. I don't remember 100% sure, but that sounds right to me. If we're talking classical Pokemon, that's about as early as it gets for the English Wizard of the Coast variety. Alright, before we move on to something else, there's something I want to share with you guys. This shadow box I've assembled with some of my personal collection and experiences and mementos from early on. I used to be part of a Pokemon trading card game league at my local mall, and that was actually my badge book and a stamper. I eventually got to be a gym leader and helped out teaching kids how to play, stamping their badge books, doing gym battles, passing out badges, promo cards. It was a really cool experience, especially for a 13, 14-year-old. And there's some interesting trinkets. These were actually my badges that I was awarded while at the league. That's my badge book. But we were talking about the E3 Pikachu earlier, and I wanted to share with you the one that I personally graded. Now this one is a Gem Mint 10, and there's not many of these. It's actually a very, very rare and scarce card to come by. And you can see this is an old one. It's got the old PSA case. It doesn't have the holographic PSA logo in it. When I graded this, there wasn't many of them at the time. I'm not sure how the population has changed since then, but it is in immaculate condition. This one means a lot to me. I don't think I would ever sell this one. I don't think I would trade it. Right now, I just keep it on display in my box. You can see my shirt's got some stains on it. It was thoroughly used as a kid. What can I say? I also want to share this with you guys. Along with the E3 Pikachu cards, these demo packs were also passed out at leagues at the E3 conference. You can see it says that they're not for resale. They came with 24 cards. They're all shadowless cards. None of them are particularly rare. It's not like a booster pack where you're going to get, you know, a random pull rate or some holographic cards. But it's a nice memento of Pokemon history here. These things are very difficult to find and pretty expensive. I believe that inside there's like an instruction booklet as well that explains how the game is played. So I like to keep this all together. It makes a nice little presentation package, and I actually assembled this myself, and I keep it up on my wall as just a reminder of my history. Although things like these can have monetary value to them, ultimately it's that sentimental value that really makes it worthwhile. Anyway, let's get back to some of the other cards. We'll get this out of the way, and we'll be right back shortly. Now, another early card that's worth consideration are the pre-release cards. Early on in Pokemon, there was often a holographic card that was released early to the public as a pre-release. The very first one that was publicly issued was Clefable. You can see the pre-release stamp down in the bottom right-hand corner, marking it as a pre-release variant. Fossil Set did Aerodactyl. Team Rocket Set, I believe, did Gyarados, Dark Gyarados. But this one's very difficult to find in good condition, and I don't think there's any PSA 10s for this card because in the machine process of cutting them, the edges and the corners are almost always frayed like this, even though the rest of the card might be in mint condition. So that's going to drop the grade at least to a mint 9, often even lower than that. So getting this card in a high grade can be very difficult, especially with the quantity of them being overwhelmingly scarce comparatively to some of the set cards. Now, I do have one other version of the pre-release Clefable. This is one I've personally graded. An 8 is a really solid grade for this card. Again, it's very difficult to grade. As you can see, it's almost perfect, but those corners are what ultimately dooms this card. Still really excited to have a copy of this card. Brings back a lot of memories. This was pretty much right when I was getting into collecting into Pokemon. I originally started with the base set, but this was shortly thereafter. Speaking of the Jungle set, another unique error card that came out with the Jungle set was the first edition Pikachu. Often this is referred to as the IV Pikachu, and this is one of the promo cards. This is actually the very first promo card as part of that Black Star promo series. The thing that makes this an error, though, and makes it unique is the inclusion of that first edition stamp. Now, it's my understanding that originally the Jungle Pikachu was meant to receive these stamps and be inserted into packs, but some of these were printed with the wrong background, with the wrong artwork, with the promo version, and then stamped, and then inserted into Jungle boxes. They're very, very difficult to pull, very difficult to find, and especially in good condition. This card has an incredibly low population in PSA 10, and in PSA 9 it's still very, very low. Really cool card, a lot of history behind this one as well. Sticking with the Jungle set, there's one other error card that's worth mentioning. This one has kind of surfaced recently, but on Pinsir, many of the Pinsir cards have this little scratch error right above the first edition stamp. Now, this isn't true of all Pinsirs, and it's still fairly rare, maybe not exceedingly rare like some of the other cards we've looked at. That little scratch can be found on a bunch of them. And it's just kind of an interesting factory misprint. This one's a mint 9. It's not perfect. Centering is a little bit off. There might be a dot or two of edge wear on the back, but still a pretty cool card. I consider this one of the original WotC errors, even though it's not as notable as some of the other ones, like maybe the No Damage Ninetales or the Error War Turtle card. Still pretty cool. Another error card that people are familiar with is the Dark Dragonite error. Now I think it's TCA Gaming that has a sheet with this card in it where you can actually see that just one of the Dragonites, like per sheet, maybe it's a couple of them, has the number 5, the holographic number, and that's actually the errors. This is the non-holo version, but it's numbered to be the holographic card in the set. So number 5 was reserved for the holographic Dark Dragonite. This one is the non-holo version. Now, the first edition form of this is exceedingly more rare than the non-first edition version. Nevertheless, even the non-first edition version is a tough card to come by. This one got an 8. I graded this one myself. It got the grade it deserves. There's a little bit of edge wear. It's not in flawless condition. But with these error cards, if you can get them in high grades, you know, you gotta count your blessings for that, because getting all of these in PSA 10s, just not realistic, especially given the amount of them that are available to grade. So that one's really cool. Another error in PSA 8, Dark Persian. So Dark Persian originally came issued and distributed in Nintendo Power Magazine in 2000. The thing with this one though is it's again a Black Star error card, promo card. But early on in the process, many of them were printed without the HP for Dark Persian and not caught until after distribution. Because of that, the numbers of these are pretty small. Again, it's a fairly difficult card to come by, but it's something that makes this card notable, interesting, and gives a little history behind it. It's missing the 60 HP is what it should have. You see that in the title of the PSA label. Has a really cool holofoil background. And again, this one can be very difficult to grade. I know there's 9s out there. There's probably a few 10s as well. Still one of the staples of error cards in English collecting. All right, the last one that I have for you guys isn't really an error card, but it goes way back to the beginnings of English Pokemon with the base set. Now, for places like Toys R Us and other places that ran leagues, they wanted to get players interested and teach people how to play the game, so they issued trainer decks to various companies, various leagues, to teach people how to play. Now there's a trainer deck A and a trainer deck B. In trainer deck A, the rare card was Machamp. In trainer deck B, it was Blastoise. And these are the only two non-holographic versions of this from the base set. If you think about Machamp, traditionally in the base set, Machamp is always first edition, and it's always holographic. Whether it's the Shadowless variant or the Unlimited variant, it's going to have that first edition stamp. The Trainer Deck A version, though, not only is it not holographic, but it's also missing that stamp. This card is very, very difficult to find. Trainer decks often sell for over $1,000, and there's not a lot of them out there. Again, these were prior to the game being released. This was so that people could learn how to play the game and then teach others that are coming to their leagues. Now, the coolest thing about the trainer deck cards is they're distinguishable very easily when you turn to the back. The trainer deck cards are literally labeled on the back of the card, and then the edges are all red. This one got a near mint grade, which I think is fair. I think that's appropriate. There is some whitening. You can see it up on the top of the card, on the side of the card. But besides that, there's no noticeable damage after all these years. So when I picked this up, I'm assuming this was actually used. It didn't come along with the deck box, but all the other cards in the deck were included, and I'll make a separate video showing you guys what all came in a Trainer Deck A. But this one is one that I'm really happy to have in my collection. Someday I want to get a full sealed box of Trainer Deck A, full sealed box of Trainer Deck B, but that's really expensive, so maybe one day. Collection goals. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for this one. If you like this video, please leave a like. Consider subscribing for more Pokemon content in the future. Again, we'll be showcasing all sorts of vintage collectibles, Wizard of the Coast sets, and providing some advice, suggestions, tips, and stories that you might be of interest in. Until then, peace, and we will see you with more content next week.